Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and more Blood and Plunder as we leave the French behind and start getting into the Dutch factions here in Raise the Black. And they have some cool things to offer us, as have all the nations so far. We're starting off with the Dutch Marines. Again, everything's roughly 1700 to 1730. And again, we tend to say this, but it's an interesting list. It has some unique things to offer us, right, as pretty much all of them do. It's really just, obviously, are you invested in playing the Dutch, and what do you really hope to get out of the list with the forces you have. Now it again is a Marine force, so we're going to get some bonuses and some options in here that are geared towards ideally fighting on the water in some capacity. So we get 2 force special rules, right? And while this one might not seem like a big deal necessarily over the top or at the top here, it's still a pretty potent ability if you think about it, because it doesn't mention any other restrictions, right? So all ships in the force gain shallow draft as a ship trait. Now, some ships already have that, cool, but again, it literally says all ships. It's not restricting us to any certain size ships or anything like that. So keep that in mind for you more maybe tournament players, or the ones looking to build some strong lists and everything, especially if we're playing on the water. That has some potential, certainly does. It's also going to be a more aggressive list, right? +2 when determining the attacker in a scenario. Are there other lists out there that give you a better bonus? Sure, there's a lot of +3s out there, but having some sort of bonus is always going to be nice in making up some ground against those lists that have a better bonus. But also, again, just having a +2 versus somebody who doesn't have any bonus to that should ideally put us ahead. Anyway, 2 main rules. Now, unlike a lot of the forces we've seen recently, where the unit selection is geared heavily in either the core or support, it's pretty, at the start here, is pretty balanced between the two, right? And all those sort of familiar units that we would typically have, although some interesting wrinkles thrown in. So we got the Zayleiden and Capers in core. We have access to European sailors unaligned in core as well, so plenty of good choices there. For support, we have Mility, the Enterplague, and then interesting little wrinkle here with the Jamaican privateers, British. So again, you got the full range, more or less, of all the good units that you would typically see in the Dutch. Command options, nothing too crazy here either. The typical standard Dutch commanders. You got Adrian Klaver and Pieter Stoel. Again, we'll cover those at some point if we have not already. But where the list really gets interesting is, and one of the cool things with Blood and Plunder too is, we can just play this list as is before we jump to the force options. Plenty of stuff going on there. Again, Blood and Plunder gives us multiple ways to play the game too, so again, there's just so many cool layers of options in this game. But if you get bored with just playing the list as is, we actually have 2 different force options for you. And that can really just, take a list, if you feel like you've mastered the above and you want to try something a little different, let's take a look at what the force options do. So we're probably going to butcher the pronunciation here, but the Rijbeuters. So let's jump in. It's got 2 bullet points for us. When attacked by a unit that's 6 inches away or less, units in this force, it's across the board, units in this force may reroll a single failed fatigue test die resulting from the attack. That's very potent. That's super strong defensively, right? Chances are, if they're that close, they're probably going to land some hits on us. So having that without having to mess with any like command points, fortune points, stuff like that, just expending other resources is huge, right? Anytime we get any sort of freebies in this game, where we get these essentially free rerolls, even if it's just one, is potent. And again, it's when a unit is attacked by a unit that's 6 inches away or less, units in this force can reroll that. So this could happen multiple times in a turn if they're different units, but also turn after turn. It's not one of these like once per game, once per turn, or other restrictions. We see a lot of those out there. This is just exactly as it reads, so that's super strong. The other part here is if this force is the attacker in an amphibious or sea scenario, which is probably, where you're going to be wanting to feel this the most, right? Dutch Marines. And again, if we're purely playing on land, obviously we're already missing one of the main force rules because we're not having any ships, right? So ideally, again, amphibious or sea. But anyway, moving on. So if it's those conditions, it may fly false colors to deceive the opposing force. I feel like we saw that once under the pirates or something like that. I know we've had something similar. Roll 1d10 at the start of each turn. On a 7+, the ruse is discovered and has no effect, so no further rolls are made. Otherwise, no units in the force may be attacked by an enemy by any enemy units this turn, unless the unit in this force attacks first or moves within 12 of an enemy unit. So pretty cool, flavorful, colorful stuff. Again, a lot of the deceptions that you would imagine that happened probably historically. So just a cool, fun, flavorful rule. Is it going to be game breaking? No. Is it going to be fun when it works? Absolutely. That being said, shouldn't bank on it necessarily, because again, stuff can go wrong. So, and you might not make your dice rolls. Now the other option here is if we go West India Company, and this is a neat one because now we and one of the fun things with, again, these force options is when we play around with like force organization or moving units around, getting access to units, losing access, things like that, or gaining or losing special rules of those units. So this one brings us later, right? Soldaten become a support unit. So now we gain a whole new unit to the force, right? Gives us that 4th unit under support, and that's a pretty good unit. And then finally, at the end of the turn, if this force has more strike points than it did at the end of the previous turn, removes 1 point of fatigue from all non-shaken units in the force. That's pretty huge too, right? Obviously, we don't want to gain strike points, but stuff happens as we take casualties and all that. So basically, if we've picked up another one, and that could be going from 0 to 1, right? Then we basically get to shake a whole lot of fatigue, right? As long as the units aren't shaken out there, we can potentially gain a whole lot of fatigue removal without, again, having to spend actions or other resources to help make that easier or happen more quickly, right? Which then frees up the force to hopefully get back in the fight a little bit better and be more effective. So those are two potent abilities here. So between the two, I feel like the first one's going to be a little bit more flavorful, whereas the second one certainly, I think, has some more, I wouldn't necessarily say tournament applications, because that's like a whole nother lengthy subject, but certainly this one gives you some like direct sort of bang for your buck as far as, hey, we're gaining a whole nother unit, and this really has the ability to potentially keep us in the fight longer, right? Because we don't want more fatigue accumulating and really having things go further south if we're already taking on strike points, which means we're losing guys, right? So altogether, a pretty cool list that does a lot of different things. Let us know, guys, which flavor of the Dutch Marines do you find the best, or just the basic one, the Vrijboiters, or the West India Company? Let us know your stories in the comments. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching.